Hey guys, welcome to week 1 of our TV writing bootcamp. This is our 6-week course that's going to take you from idea to finished draft of a brand new pilot. We'll have the holidays that will kind of extend this out to a little more than 6 weeks, but generally we'll have 6 class meetings that will help you go from just completely blank page to a complete outline. We'll expand that outline into scene cards, and we'll take those scene cards and use them to get to the end of a draft in 6 class meetings, with the finale of this class wrapping up in February. So make sure to keep your microphone muted while you're in the course. If you can just check the small gray microphone icon should be next to your name on Discord. If that's up, that means that you are indeed muted. If you're watching on one of our other places like YouTube or Twitch, you can come join us on Discord. Just go to scriptcamp.net and you will be able to find the link to join our Discord server and participate in the class. If you need to adjust someone's volume, you can right-click on their name and move that small blue bar either up or down. We are Skill Camp, so Script Camp is one of the many servers in Skill Camp, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's bringing free and low-cost classes to help you learn skills to reach your life goals. We have new classes coming soon, free for supporting members, as well as new boot camps coming up soon. So you should drop by our new servers and say hi if you have interest in these other subjects like novel writing over in WordCamp, or ToonCamp, which is growing to be our second biggest, I think. So that's focused on animation and features weekly animation classes. We also have Film Camp, Creator Camp, Design Camp, Lingo Camp, and Code Camp, with the upcoming boot camp coming up in Code Camp for January. We have some of the no classes are yet scheduled for some of these, but we're just trying to grow these communities, and we're trying to get as many folks in these as we can that are interested in these topics. So just feel free to drop by and check our other servers if you have any interest in these other creative kind of topics, subjects. Other things you can do to help out: you can donate, you can become a supporting member and get access to boot camps and labs from $29 a month with the yearly discount. You can volunteer. If you know a skill or language you'd like to teach, you can contact either me or Nacho on Discord, or email Connor@scriptcamp.net and let us know if you have a skill or something you'd like to teach on one of our servers. And you can tell your friends. If you refer somebody, you will both get a free month of unlimited subscription and also a free month of Arc Studio Pro, which is a great screenwriting software. So I have already introduced myself in the intro class, so I won't go on too much about myself. I'll just say I've been a repped and working writer since 2017, and I teach the TV, feature, and novel classes that are currently ongoing. New novel class has not been announced yet, but will likely be early next year after a couple introductory classes to bring some more folks into the server, so that'll be starting probably early February. We have new sessions of Painting with Light and Home Studio Lighting tomorrow, 6 and 5 p.m. on Film Camp and Creator Camp, so check those out if you have interest in cinematography or home studio content creation. We have Animation Lab, so weekly animating classes Tuesdays at 3, and our Coding Bootcamp is starting January 8th at noon. So your subscription to Skill Camp gets you all of these things. You can attend over, I think, around 100 hours of classes a month at this point. We have script swaps, one on Tuesday at 5, one on Wednesday at 11. We have clubs and workshops like horror, fantasy, sketch comedy. So plenty to do here on Script Camp, with something going on almost every single day of the week. Here's the free classes that are coming up. So we did a few so far, but this is going to be the latter half of our December classes here. So we have TV Pilot Bootcamp, that's today. We have Writing the First Page this Sunday at 11 a.m. That's going to be looking at features and pilots, but my specialty is features, so it will always angle a little bit towards features. Script Camp Christmas Pitch Fest is on the 21st at 6 o'clock, and that one you can bring your 2 to 3 minute long pitch for your movie. Remember, a verbal pitch, explaining the basics of the plot about up until the midpoint, and then you want to sort of suggest the trajectory of the rest of the story. That one does not have to have, or you don't have to bring a holiday-themed script, but we'll have a special category for holiday-themed scripts, so definitely come by if you want to win some fun merchandise and prizes there. How to sell your movie idea, Wednesday 28th at 6 o'clock. That's going to be more like how to communicate and pitch your movie idea. Again, the idea of pitching extends to so much of what we do as screenwriters. It's more than just trying to get someone to buy a story from you. It's how we communicate everything, whether it's a logline, whether it's a one sheet, whether it's a treatment. We're always doing this act of condensing information and trying to communicate story ideas in the most efficient way possible. So that's what we're going to look at December 28th at 6. And we'll have another one-off class on TV writing December 30th at 6 o'clock. And then in the new year, we'll have a couple more like best protagonist for your movie. So we'll be looking at matching your character to your story, January 6th at 11 a.m. And then the boot camps resume after that. So January 6th at 6 p.m., that's when Pilot Bootcamp starts, week 2. So the next class in this series that you're currently in is January 6th at 6 o'clock. And then week 1 of features starts January 8th at 11, and that's going to be running Sundays from 11 to 1 from the beginning of January, so till end of February. All right, plenty of dates and plenty of things to remember, so definitely take note of when your events are coming up, and you can, in Discord, if you go to the Events tab, you can click that small button that says Interested, and that way you'll get a reminder before the class begins, and it'll tell you when it's getting started up. All right, what are the boot camps? So these are courses that are going to take you from idea to first draft, or from rough draft to a more polished rewrite if you're bringing a rewrite. But if you are bringing rewrites to these bootcamp courses, make sure it's something that you're willing to really break apart and re-examine and do a lot of rewriting on, a heavy rewrite. We're going to be using my step-by-step practical method in these 2-hour weekly classes, all completely live and interactive, but we'll have recordings up in the video library for our subscribers. We have 8 weeks for features, 6 weeks for TV, which is this one, 4 weeks for our short film and pitching and other topics that we've done before, in the 4-week slot, though we don't currently have a 4-week camp going. And we have 12 weeks for Novel Bootcamp, which will be concluding in January. You can join the bootcamps. You can buy the class on its own at scriptcamp.net/classes, or you can start your free trial for unlimited membership at scriptcamp.net/membership. And very shortly, there will be a poll posted in the chat that you can click the number 1 if you intend to sign up but have not yet signed up. There it is there. Those little blue numbers, if you click the 1 in the Discord chat, that indicates that you plan to sign up and will give you instant access to all those exclusive chat channels so you can start planning and workshopping your project more. Unlimited membership, like I mentioned, includes access to all of the events and classes we do on all our different servers. It's not just ScriptCamp, though currently our main website is scriptcamp.net. We don't currently have the Skill Camp website set up yet, but once that's up, you'll be able to sign up through that one too. So sign up currently through scriptcamp.net. You'll be able to get access to, about 100 hours of different classes and different subjects per month, mostly in the sort of screenwriting side. You'll get exclusive channels and also $100 off consultations and proofreads. Okay, let's look at the schedule for this course. So this is why this story today. So we'll look at refining the story ideas that we have and kind of narrowing down. If you bring several different ideas, we're going to try to figure out which one is the best one to pick. The way that we're going to often be choosing is just the one that gets you the most excited and that you're the most sort of eager to finish, and you're going to be able to bring up that motivation to come back to week after week for 6 weeks. And if you are still in doubt, then maybe choose the one with the stronger ending. If you have an ending in mind for a few of them, then pick the one that is going to end with a bigger bang. So we're going to also start filling out these sketchbooks if you've not already done so. This last class meeting, so the sketchbook is this blank Google document that you're going to use as almost like a journal to keep all of your research information together, all of your ideas for the plot line or characters or lines of dialogue. You just need to keep those all in one place and be updating that continuously as you go. And you can also use that as a sort of a worksheet where you'll be working out the early versions of things like your story beat summary or your scene cards, which you can then copy into other documents and therefore use the sketchbook as like a scratch pad where you'll kind of do the hard work of figuring things out, and then you'll copy paste them over once they are in an advanced enough form to transfer to a different document. So sketchbook, super important. We'll be making that today if you've not already done so. And if you have already done that, I recommend you keep that open and be working on that throughout the class. I think while you are listening to the class, and if you're just staring at the computer screen, it's a good idea to have the sketchbook open and be continually adding things and coming up with ideas and writing down questions that you might have and just keeping track of your progress and adding to your progress even during the class time. And that will also be a good place to keep the early version of your logline as you improve it and iterate upon it. Maybe you'll have a few different versions as every permutation of the logline as you go through it. So you're going to be able to keep track of all of those there and be able to easily copy and paste text from that to our Discord chat. So highly recommend opening up that sketchbook if you've not already done so, and be updating that throughout the class period. We have next week outlining broad strokes. That's going to be, that's not next week. It's our next class week, which is January 6th. That's going to be the week that we're going to try to finish our story beat summary. So we're going to talk about story beat summary on that January 6th class and go over structure really heavily so that we know exactly what's going to happen. The idea being that we're trying to figure out what happens on every page of the script before we start writing pages. Week 3 is scene cards, and that's going to be January 13th, where we're going to expand that basic outline into a much more advanced full paragraph for every single scene, as well as the page numbers that it's intended to take place on. So we're going to get a sense of not only what happens in each scene, but how big each scene will be, and get a look at the shape of the story. First act, week 4. Week 5, second act. Week 6 is third act. And we'll try to finish that first draft by February 10th. Any questions on the schedule before we continue? Looks like we have a question in the chat. Where do you get the sketchbook? This is just a blank Google document. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but this is just something you can just go to Google Docs. If you already have a Google or YouTube account, you should already have a Google Drive account. So just go there, open up a brand new document, and you're just going to title it name of your pilot and sketchbook. If you don't have a name for the pilot yet, you can just call it sketchbook. Hearing some clicking sounds and breathing sounds and things from somebody's mic. If you could everyone just make sure that your mic is muted with that small gray microphone icon next to your name on Discord. So, Evil Michael, if you could just click the mute button, please. We're hearing some sounds coming from your mic.
Really? Sorry about that.
No problem. And
I
then
don't know how I got unmuted. I didn't click my microphone button, but
it's all good. No problem. Thanks for that. So just make sure everyone has that microphone icon on. I think we have one more person.
Push to talk on.
You have push to talk.
So
okay, no problem.
Don't to be muted.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. So let's go ahead and make your sketchbook now if you've not already done that. So go to your Google Docs, open your blank document, and just title it sketchbook. And you're going to put a couple things at the top of that. If you were here last week, If you were here last week, then you already have a good sense of the sort of stuff to put at the top of that. Where is my slide on that? Don't I have a slide on that? Here it is. So at the top of the sketchbook, you can put these things if you don't know what else to put, or if you're just wondering how to start filling this out. At the top goes the title. So if you have an idea for the title or a few ideas, then that's fine, and you can just list them out. We have format, which is going to be 60-minute or half hour. Those are pretty much the choices when it comes to TV. And then you can designate after that premise or status quo, which is going to be the continuity format of the series. If you weren't here last week and you need more explanation on that, we'll touch on that again today. Genre. So genre, we're going to talk about that more today because we didn't get to that much last time. But you're going to try not to pick more than 2 genres, because the more that you add, the more it just starts to sound like a crazy soup of nonsense. So just limit it to 2 genres at the most. Your series logline and your pilot logline are going to be the last 2 spaces and the things that you're going to be filling out there. So the series logline being the overview of the sort of trajectory of the show. It's going to be pretty much describing the world, the main character, and perhaps both, depending on what the hook is. It's going to be a little broader in scope and not require as much urgency as the pilot logline, which is going to feel more like a feature logline. It's going to emphasize urgency and the main character's goal in that very first episode. So you're going to want to write out all of these things at the top of your sketchbook if you've not already done that, and just be filling these things in as they come to you, or as you work out what the answers might be. Okay, so while you guys are all doing that and working on that, let's take a look at, and we've talked about Sketchbook, so yeah, let me just say the last thing I'll say on Sketchbook, because I think you guys get what to do here. There's no right thing that you have to include in this, but this is just going to be a place to collect your notes and sketches and ideas as you continue to work on this. So this is never really done, and it's never really needs to be turned in, that you can link to it if you need to, or if you're doing some work in there that you want to get looked at some point. You're going to be fleshing out your characters and coming up with a bunch of just ideas for your whole cast of characters. Possible themes for your story, or action for the story, or maybe specific plot moments that you know are going to be in there, even if you don't know where they're going to be yet. Possible endings, snippets of dialogue, research, pictures, links to videos, or anything else that just helps you immerse in this world and story. Any questions on Sketchbook before we move on from this? Because this is something you'll just basically be working on in every class from here on out. Okay, if there's no questions, we'll keep going. So, let's not talk blockbuster moments just yet. Or should I? Let me see what I'm looking at. I will mention this. We won't go super deep into this yet, but something that I like to include in sketchbooks are these things that I call these blockbuster moments, and we can define these just in these terms. These are iconic scenes that are going to leave the audience, breathless or cheering. These are just going to be really great moments or scenes from your story. Often these are going to be some of the first things that you thought of when you were conceiving of this idea, and you may have no idea what the context that this will be in yet. Like, imagine, I know that this was not written this way, but if we imagine that the Lord of the Rings was written from the standpoint of, okay, this is like going to be a TV pilot or a feature that I'm working on, maybe at first Tolkien could have been like, okay, I don't know the context yet, but I know there's got to be an amazing scene where a bunch of knights ride over a hill as dawn breaks behind them and they charge down towards the city to liberate it from an army of monsters. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to fit that into the story, but I'm going to put that in my sketchbook. So that, even without the context around it, it's useful to come up with these moments that that you'd kind of want to build to just because they'd be cool, even if you don't quite know how we're going to get there yet. So I recommend trying to come up with some ideas for these and just be thinking, what would just be cool in the world that I've created? Or what was the image that I saw when I first conceived of this? If you're going to be writing about a show about a kid that makes friends with a robot, well, I mean, maybe we want to have that first scene where he pilots the robot and he smashes another robot. Or maybe like in a story about someone who is falling in love, we'd want to have a montage of their first date and how crazy the situations get as it escalates further and further. So whatever the story is, you should kind of be familiar. You should be picking a genre to write in that you know what blockbuster moments in that genre would kind of look like. And this can be a lot of different things. I mean, these are just moments of heightened intensity, emotion, and story importance, and that are very often visual in some way too. So it's nice to think of these in terms of it would just look awesome is a fine place to start. And then you're going to want to, as you continue to work on your show, figure out a logical place for that to actually play in and for that to actually be an important moment, not just feel like it should be an important moment. But the work of the rest of the structuring that you'll be doing is trying to slot that into your story in such a way that you can lead up to it and actually have that be worth some build-up. Like, blockbuster moments make great payoff to earlier moments that moments that came before. So it's a lot of the work you'll be doing when we go into week 2 is figuring out, okay, now that I know what the things I'm building up to are, how can I build up to them in such a way that the audience understands what's going on? We're following a character as they try to achieve a clear, tangible goal, and by the time we get to these awesome things, that the kid rides the dragon for the first time, or we have our first amazing fight scene, or we have our character's kiss at this big romantic proposal scene or something like that, then we're going to put the architecture in place to get to those moments in such a way that the audience gets it and makes sense and they feel the impact of them. It doesn't just look and seem like it should be awesome, it actually will be, at least in theory. So there's no real good place there's no right or wrong place to put those. Often there's going to be sort of one of these in the premise scenes, which is like around the middle, second act of your story. There's probably going to be one in your finale, and one kind of just wherever you want. They're less common at the beginning just because big, important moments often require us some investment of we have to know who the characters are and care about them a little bit before we will care enough to be intrigued by the moment that you're showing us. But depending on the genre, it might be possible to have some of these pretty early on. In horror and thriller especially, you have a little more license to have blockbuster moments, even perhaps as the opening scenes. But often this will require a little bit more time, so I wouldn't try to front-load your script with a bunch of these. Anyway, this is just an idea. We don't have to worry way too much about this now, but it's just an idea of something to put into your sketchbook, and the sort of thing that you can start to be building your plot around is just these moments that just feel important and cool, even if you don't know the whole reason why yet. Okay, so let's talk loglines, and if you were not here last week, let's just remind ourselves what the logline is. So the logline is going to be just a one-sentence expression of the story idea, and there's going to be 2 of them like we mentioned before. So there's a series logline, and I'll get out of the way. You have a series logline and you have a pilot logline. The series logline is intended to primarily convey the unique characters and situations in the story world that's going to continue to promise many different stories over the years, because a show is supposed to last for years unless it's one of these rare modern sort of limited series or miniseries or something like that. But generally when you're writing a pilot, it's going to be for a show. It's not going to be for a limited series or for a miniseries. In any case, the series logline will convey this is the world that this takes place in, and it should be trying to clarify what the story engine is. So if you were in our How to Create a TV Show class this last week. On Wednesday, we talked story engines, and the story engine being the somewhat intangible collection of traits that make your story feel like it has legs and like it can continue to go and continue to run for multiple years, and like, not to mention past the pilot. Whereas if you read some pilots that don't have a very clear story engine, we get to the end and it feels like, oh, the show's over, right? How could this possibly continue for another week? So a story engine is going to be a combination of character dynamics and points of conflict that are going to be generating more story and more episodes as we go on. So that's something really worth thinking about and really worth clarifying in that series logline. It should seem like this is a show that could run for years. A pilot logline is similar to a feature logline, so that's going to be a little bit more regimented and a little bit clearer of a format to it. It's going to start with usually the inciting incident of the pilot, so the thing that kicks the story into motion. And that might be, imagine if you're doing a fish out of water story where somebody starts a new job, your inciting incident will probably be when he gets a new job at blank place. Then your character must, etc. But so let me bring up the format for that. So that looks like this. You don't have to do this exact format every time, but these are the major questions that we'll be wondering, and the questions that you should seek to answer with your logline, even if you don't phrase it exactly like this. So when or after inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes or ticking clock. And remember to keep this in the scope of just the pilot. In the pilot logline, we're trying to get a sense of what happens in this first hour of TV. And we're not going to be writing more episodes because unless you really want to for your own fun or just the experience of doing so, you're not really able to use those other episodes when you're trying to sell shows, and no one's going to read more than a pilot. So we really have to focus on the experience of just within that one pilot, that one 30-page or 60-page script. That's going to be all we get, and we got to put all the good stuff that we can there so that we aren't holding stuff in reserve for episodes that we will never be able to achieve or produce. So with the pilot logline, really do focus on motivation, stakes, and urgency. So we should feel maybe the constraints of a ticking clock, or what we sometimes call the walls of the story. So it should feel like it has boundaries or a time frame to it, or it should feel like this is something that will reasonably wrap up in 60 pages or 30 pages. So if your whole show is about, I don't know, a criminal slowly rising to power and growing his empire, something like Narcos or something like that, and your pilot episode is not going to be a criminal rises to power. Your pilot logline is going to be like when he goes broke, a small-time thug gets, a job to deliver some cocaine to the Rocky Mountains or something, some very specific and tangible goalpost that we will understand, okay, this is the first chapter of this much longer story. So careful not to imply that the scope is too, don't make the scope seem too broad in the pilot logline. The scope needs to be pretty small in the pilot logline. Whereas the series logline, that's going to be like, okay, this is the whole arc of many years of episodes. So I think that we had some folks who came up with early versions of their loglines last week and maybe got a little bit of feedback. So maybe some folks have some stuff down already, and maybe some are attempting to decide what do I want which of my several ideas do I want to go with for the class. So let's remind ourselves really quickly about just a couple guidelines and ground rules. So first of all, don't do true stories, anthologies, or adaptations. These things usually just require more research, and as you'll only have such a condensed time frame to write a script in a boot camp, 6 weeks or 6 class meetings, maybe it's more like 8 weeks with the holidays or whatever, but you still get it. It's not a ton of time. You want to pick ideas that you can reasonably finish within that time frame and avoid them ballooning way too big so that you aren't going to be able to do all the research necessary to do the justice to the idea or something like that. Typically for a boot camp, you want to be picking ideas that you don't need to worry about doing proper justice to. You need to be picking ideas that you will get excited about and can finish in the time frame. Because the main skills, the only skills that you really need to work on to be a successful screenwriter are reading a lot, and you should be reading, and we will have some time today. Everyone can, hopefully, if you were here last week, you will have read a full pilot script by today. So like we linked you the directory of many pilots to choose from. So we'll ask today, what pilots did you read and what did you notice or like or learn? I lost my sentence. It was too long. It was my train of thought just went away. But I hope you get the idea. So try to pick a manageable idea. Don't do a true story or something that you feel you must do justice to. We're trying to pick something you can finish and move on from. Oh yeah, I was saying the main 3 things you need to do. Reading, writing, and moving on. This third big skill of moving on from one script to the next one is something you'll need to do again and again, and you're going to be writing dozens of scripts as you attempt to break in. So, don't do true stories, don't do anthologies, don't do adaptations. if I can remind everyone, please try to keep, if you could click the mute button, or you'll keep your mic muted. That's the small gray microphone icon in the bottom left corner of the screen. We're hearing a little bit of microphone sounds from Carol. Thank you. Okay. Nacho just linked the link. He linked the directory to the TV Pilot website. It's a Google group that has dozens and dozens of pilots to choose from in our chat. So you should click that if you are looking for something to read, because your goal will be to be reading one full, complete pilot script at absolute minimum every week. I recommend you read 3 of them, and as they're only 30 to 60 pages, that's not very long. That's like either half or a fourth the length of a feature. So you can absolutely read 3 of these a week, and I recommend that you do. Reading, writing, and moving on are the 3 skills that you need to develop most intensely, with the close second, a close rung down from those being gracefully receiving feedback and trying to learn to incorporate that into your work without getting defensive or without losing motivation just because you get what you might consider to be harsh notes. Things like that, that's going to be the next rung down. But the top rung of just what to do to succeed as a screenwriter: read, write, and finish and move on. So don't do time travel. Believe me, just don't do it. We've never seen someone able to finish a time travel script in a boot camp. You might take that as a challenge. You might think, oh, I'll be the first one. And we've had many who have thought that they would be the first one. Don't do it. Probably don't do a historical unless you have a good amount of grounding in that time period, culture, or maybe you only watch Renaissance dramas or something like that, so you have a good sense of what that would be like. But we're trying to just limit things that are going to require extra research and extra time and extra fidelity to things like the truth or historicity or any of these other things, or real living people that care about how the story is portrayed. All of those things are going to slow down the writing process so much that we want to typically just write something fun and fresh and new that will just get you excited and you don't care too much about. You don't want to care too much about a bootcamp script, because your first couple scripts, to begin with, just if this is one of your first couple scripts, will not be that good, and that's okay, and we have to accept and embrace that and use that to motivate yourself and say, oh, this is a great time of my career. I can write whatever I want. And it doesn't matter exactly how it turns out, because none of them will be, like, amazing, probably. No one's first painting gets hung up in a museum. And so no one's first pilot script gets made into a TV show. A TV show being a multi-million-dollar corporation that employs hundreds of people for many years and moves millions and millions of dollars. Your first ever script is probably not going to become one of those. And that's okay. Neither is your first 5 or 10 or perhaps 15 to 20 to 30. It takes many years to do, so try to pick something that is just fun. And you're going to look at this as a process of running laps. Every boot camp is like a lap around the gym, and you're building your skills, and you're not worrying too much about, how am I going to sell this? How am I going to pitch this? You're not going to, is the answer. You're going to improve your skills, and you're going to become the kind of person that people want to pitch to them. Be careful with certain difficult storytelling elements like clones, parallel universes, and extensive flashbacks or multiple different timelines. Anything where there's more than one copy of the same characters. That could be something like Battlestar Galactica, where there actually are robotic clones of the same characters, or it could be a body switch like Freaky Friday, or it could be a show with intertwined flashback structures like True Detective, at which point we have you're writing the same characters in different eras, so they are the same people but also fundamentally changed by the things that have happened to them, and you have to keep those timelines straight. It's really, really difficult to write all these things and to keep them straight on the page and make them make sense on the page, especially if you're brand new. So probably don't try to write stories that hinge around one of these 3 things. But besides these things, do just feel free to take a big swing and just try something weird and wacky, some different idea while you're still building these fundamental skills. You might as well just try something that you're like, oh, that'll never get made. And get used to the idea of sharing your work with myself and with other students and with everyone, even at these early stages. No one's going to steal your ideas, first of all, and if you're writing these ideas that you are, again, not that excited about, you're looking at just running laps around the gym, you won't care if somebody steals it anyway, but they aren't going to, because you're probably just still learning, and, it's not really a concern. Your main concern should be, how do I improve, how do I stay on course, how do I keep my momentum up, and how do I move on to the next script, and the next one, and the next one. And if you want to work in TV rooms, you have to be a good collaborator. You have to be willing to throw ideas out there and have people shoot them down or laugh at them or perhaps boo them and say, that's dumb, I don't get that. Like, we don't know how your bosses are going to treat you or how your other employees at that TV staff are going to react, and you have to have a thick skin and be prepared to hear that doesn't work, or be prepared to hear we aren't going to do that, or be prepared to hear all these things like, this is maybe not the best way to do this scene. It's not to say they're going to be mean to you, though once it gets into the intensity of the crunch time of writing a show, tempers do flare, and you will get, like, harsh notes sometimes in a TV staff. You won't get that here. I mean, we'll always be very nice, but just be prepared to hear, like, that might not work the best. There may be a better way to do this. If you think your ideas are so unimpeachably great that no collaboration can improve them, you're not going to be writing. You shouldn't be writing for TV. I don't even know why you would want to. Last thing, please use your real name after this class. So for the week one and for just these intro courses, you don't have to use your real name. You can use a screen name, but we can't use our screen names in the industry. And if you want to be continuing past week one of any bootcamp course, make sure to just change your Discord name to your real name. Or if you really don't want to use your real name, then you can use a nickname, your middle name, a dog's name, or something like that. But just pick a real name. Okay, any questions on the ground rules?
Can we change our own nicknames? Because I'm not sure we can if we want to go for our real name rather than an artist's name, for example.
You should be able to. I think you can. Go ahead, Nacho.
If it's easier, you could just type it in the chat. We could change it for you anytime.
Oh, I just figured it out. My bad. Thanks. I'm sorry. It's just 3 a.m.
You're good. Yeah, if you're on a browser, or if you're on the PC version, right-click on your username and you should be able to do it. If you figured it out, then that's great. But yeah, it's slightly different on phone or tablet or things like that.
Figured it out. Changed it.
Okay, great. So, any other questions on ground rules? Okay, let's look a little bit more at time slot and format and genre. So, time slot and format we touched on a little bit last week, but didn't really, or in our last class, but did not really get that much into. So let's talk about this now. So you basically are choosing between half hour or full hour. A half hour script is going to be 30 to 34, maybe 35 pages. A 60-minute show is going to be 60 to 65 pages, maybe. Half hour is usually going to be comedic or comedy or more episodic shows, but not always. There's so many exceptions to this nowadays that we can't look at that as a rule anymore, but just that is often going to be people's default assumption that half hour will be comedy. Half hour is for comedy, hour is for drama. But there's so many exceptions to that. I mean, we have half hour everything. We have dramedy, dark comedy, horror, thriller, action. We have like almost everything in half hour format now, at least a couple instances of it. So you can always just choose to do half hour. And if you're new at this and you're not sure if you're going to be able to finish, or you have limited time, or you have kids and a job or these things, you are incentivized to pick a half hour idea as opposed to an hour idea, because it's just half as many pages to do in the same time frame. So if you're wondering, what should I pick? I would pick half hour. 60-minute is the other option that's going to be more dramatic. There are not hour-long comedies is the only thing. We do sometimes see hour-long dramedy or dark comedy or comedy thriller or stuff like that where it has like a humorous tone, but we don't just see sitcoms that are 60 minutes long. We just don't. That just doesn't exist in the Western world as far as I'm aware. But beyond that, you can write essentially any genre. So keep in mind also just what these different formats give you access to in terms of story space. So half hour, that's like 5 scenes per act at the most, and that's assuming each scene is pretty quick, and that's 15 scenes total. 5 scenes commercial, 5 scenes commercial, 5 scenes end. So keep in mind how much you can actually do with that. It's not a ton. Half hour is a really short story. We already pretty much approach feature storytelling in a really similar way to short stories. And this is a fourth the length of a feature. You don't have a ton of time in half hour. In an hour, you do have a bit more time, but you're not going to be able to wrap everything up, which is like the weird thing about writing a pilot. We should be wrapping up a majority of the threads that you open, but not all of them, because we want to feel like there is more story to go after this. If you're writing a premise-based show, which is going to be more like a long movie, remember that's the one where it's like each episode is just a single chapter of this much longer story. You absolutely have to leave some threads unresolved and feel like, oh, interesting stuff is coming next week. And you should even be maybe thinking how towards the end you can be leading up to, how you can leave the audience in such a way that they feel, oh, I have to come back next week to see how this plays out, or to see where that goes. Or you have to be able to introduce some plot elements, especially, or like even towards the end, that you have no intention to actually wrap up. And the nice thing is you don't need to know where they go necessarily. You can kind of just drop some mysteries in front of us in the show, and then the pilot, you have no way of actually fulfilling those because you won't get any more episodes. And that's okay with premise pilots. We expect and we want that. Now, if you're doing a status quo pilot, which is our other sort of continuity format, that's going to be more like your Simpsons, your Family Guy, Law & Order, CSI, a procedural or cartoon or sitcom, How I Met Your Mother, Friends, things like that are all going to pretty much wrap up a neat little story at the end, and there's not going to be some big cliffhanger or some plot element that needs to be resolved. There do not need to be threads left strategically hanging at the end of a status quo show. There can be a couple, but there don't really need to be. You really should focus in a status quo show on delivering a very strong beginning, middle, end story that feels like there's way more where this came from in this arrangement of characters. Like this toolbox, this set of tools that I've laid out, this set of characters that I've laid out before you, feel like they have enough going on that we're going to be able to get unlimited stories from them over many, many years. Any questions on time slot and format? All right, if there's no questions on time slot and format, remember, be filling these things in on your sketchbook as you are coming up with what you want to do. So, for instance, if you suddenly decide, okay, I want to do a shorter show, then you're going to write time slot, 30-minute. And if you think it's going to be a thing of the week kind of show where everything resets continuity-wise, then you'll say status quo. If this will be... There are half-hour premise shows, though. They are just very rare. Okay, so let's look at just a couple examples. Yeah, we can look at these examples if you want. So 30-minute cable shows. We have things like You're the Worst on FX, Broad City. We have Brooklyn Nine-Nine, New Girl, Community. These are all half-hour comedies. And then we have half-hour premium. These are going to be on things like your Showtime, your HBO, and premium cable networks like that. So they don't have commercials, and the page counts are a little longer, but you're going to write them the same, and you should still include act breaks even if you're writing for a premium cable type show. You can see they're going to be like 30 pages, maybe up to 40 for some of these, but I would cut yours off at 35 just because we want to not really be like writing beyond what most people expect a pilot to be. Remember, this isn't going to get made, so the rules are a little bit lax, but generally just try to make it look like you know what you're doing and limit it to 35 and a half hour, and about 65 an hour, though I know that there are exceptions, like we have The Leftovers over here, which is has a long premiere that's almost like a movie. Shows like Sherlock or things like that, which are going to have like basically movie-length episodes, just don't write those. For pilots, you want to limit yourself to the time slots that are generally accepted and available to us. So 30 to 35 pages or 60 to 65 pages, but you can here at least look and see what some of these other page counts and time slots look like. Thanks for posting the screen cap of that, Nacho. Okay, let's talk genre, which we've not done yet, right, in this class. So what is a genre? Somebody want to just take a swing at just defining it for us? What does this actually mean?
Would be happy to try.
Go ahead.
So I would define genre as the general aesthetic and thematic type of writing that goes into something, especially defined by whether or not it is a realistic type or maybe a more fictional type, with nonfiction and fiction being, I suppose, the biggest two umbrella terms there. So, yeah, maybe that.
Yeah, I think you're definitely touching on it here. It's a collection of themes and aesthetics. So yeah, definitely some genres lean really heavily into one aesthetic. and sort of just feel a certain way. Some genres are almost entirely defined by aesthetics, like noir, for instance. Noir is one of these genres that is usually going to be crime stories that take place in bleak urban environments, but you really know noir when you see it because of the smoky, dark alleys and the long shadows and people smoking cigarettes from mysterious windows, and you know that the plot elements will include types of stuff, like certain archetypes and certain tropes. Somebody said in our chat, thank you, Lee, it's a set of tropes. Yeah, it's that too. Genre is a couple different things. It's like a collection of things. It's not just one thing. It is a collection of, if we were to just define everything, we would just say it's a series of expectations. And those expectations might be defined as tropes, like, we have certain archetypes that we see in noir stories. We see the grizzled detective at the end of his rope. We see the mysterious and dangerous, sexy femme fatale lady. We see the bureaucrat, the big rich politician. Like, we have certain character types that we just see in these types of stories. It's not to say that you have to have those. These are just expectations. Genres are a series of expectations. And they are at times a little bit arguable or amorphous, and we can say, I don't know if I agree that was that genre, but we can look at these very much by the intent of the filmmaker. So if you intended this to be scary, then to me, that is horror. If it's like intended to be as scary as possible as its primary method of entertaining you, that's horror. Whether or not it actually scares you, it doesn't mean that it's not horror. We're looking at the intention, right? So if the intention is to be funny, like, you can't say it's not a comedy just because it didn't make you laugh. Clearly, if it was trying to make you laugh, then we're looking at comedy. So we have a bunch of choices. It's not an unlimited list of choices, and you're not really hemmed in or limited by this. Don't look at this as restrictive. Just look at this as you're trying to tell people what they're getting into and what kind of thrills and excitement they're in for. And it's to help make sure that the right people are reading this. You don't want to give this to somebody who does not want what you have to offer. So your options are basically comedy, drama, crime, sci-fi, fantasy. I know these, sometimes people put a slash between those. Action adventure, mystery, thriller, and horror. And I know that some of those, like the slashes, you could argue that those are even distinct. I just have kind of stuck a few of them together as I see fit. Yeah, don't get way too hung up on whether or not those are the same or distinct. All right, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like 8 options of genres, and all of these things. Like, I know that might sound restrictive, but if we look at this list, all of these shows can fit into 2 of these genres. And if you feel like you're adding too many genres, like you're trying to get too nuanced, it will start to feel like nothing. It will start to feel like nonsense. So don't add more than 2. Beyond just these collections of expectations in terms of the tone and the themes and the content that will be in the show, we also have additional definition in TV in terms of procedural. Procedural are going to be shows that usually revolve around people at a certain specific type of workplace, or at least people that will be following a certain set of procedures week by week. So that's usually going to be police, medical, or legal, or some other institution like that. A detective agency, maybe, or we've seen some superhero type shows that even feel a little bit like procedurals. So there's not a really strict definition of what that is, but we do think that with procedurals, for the most part, it's going to be thing of the week. So you can think monster of the week, case of the week, patient of the week, something like that. And because of that, we will be able to tune into these episodes in any order, and it's not going to be like we're building up to something huge in the distance. Though in some shows that some procedurals might have arcs, and might have much longer gradual things that eventually do become revealed in shows like The Mentalist and stuff like that. Eventually we do have overarching villains, and we do have like stuff that we are building up to, but don't worry about that for a pilot. You want to feel like it's a complete beginning, middle, and end story. And for a procedural, you probably want to do either fish out of water, so somebody new joins this team, job, organization, or crew, or whatever it is, and now needs to find their place in it. Or you want to drop us in the middle of their day-to-day life and just say, okay, here we are at the monster hunting squad, here's their first monster, here's the most recent monster, let's go get them. So you're usually just going to want to choose one of those for any type of story where we're trying to set up a thing of the week. You can definitely just drop us in the middle of their world and not feel the need to introduce the characters to this, and that can actually be really useful to just avoid all that exposition and just say, we're just going to jump into the middle of these people's lives. That works really well on TV. We have animated shows too. There it is. Animated shows, which you do not write any differently. For the most part. I mean, like, if you're writing animation to be produced, sometimes you can be a bit more specific and a bit more finicky and precise in the descriptions than you should be in live action usually, just because they have complete control over every single frame in animation. And so if you really need to describe the looks of stuff, then sometimes it behooves you to do that, but there's no real need to in a pilot. So for pilots, you're pretty much going to write them the exact same way. You don't even need to designate that it's animated anywhere. You just have to kind of know that it is. And with animation in the US, we expect these to be half-hour, and we expect these to be either comedy or action-adventure. There's a lot of exceptions to that nowadays as well, but if it's not a very visual story and it doesn't really use the visual medium to its like to do interesting and new and different things, then we might start to kind of question, why are you saying this is animated? Like, you can kind of just say anything is animated because we don't have to put in the work of doing that. But if it's a show like Undone on Amazon, which is about a woman who is trying to, I believe if I remember correctly, she's trying to piece together the mystery of her father's disappearance, or he leaves and she's trying to figure out where he's gone. And that's an animated show, but we really get into the interiority of the characters. We do a lot of sort of stuff in her mind and in her imagination as her whole world sort of starts to like break and deconstruct around her and all these things. So you can see why animation really does benefit a story like that. But if it's just like a sitcom, then we might ask, does this have to be animated? And if you are doing something in the field of animation, or if you're writing something that is animated, it gives you options that you wouldn't have in live action, right? Like we can have, like, for instance, one of our main characters on Family Guy is the family dog, and he just talks. And that feels, in an animated world, that feels like it makes a little more sense. Like, he behaves pretty much just like another person, like another member of the family does, and nobody really questions it. And that just is sort of fine in animation. Like, you can just do that, whereas in live action, that would turn a lot of heads and be like, what is going on here? So just choose carefully. Like, don't just say something's animated just for no reason, just because you like cartoons. You should have a sense of the way that you're going to take advantage of the creativity and the freedom of the drawing and the animated medium, rather than something that would need to be live action. So go crazy with it. Take advantage of it. If you're planning on doing animated, then make it clear why you've chosen that, is all I will say. Okay, questions on genres. And you guys can either type in the chat, or you can feel free to click the mute button and ask out loud. I want to make sure everyone's clear on genre, and does everyone have a good sense of what genre they want to write and what genre their idea falls into?
Hi, I have a question about genre with respect to the, sorry, I also have a cold. With respect to what you said earlier about sort of historical shows, is it a bad idea to go into this boot camp intending to do a procedural about a profession that you don't have a lot of experience with?
Not necessarily. If you think that within the time frame of the class that you will be able to explore that and like get the most out of it. If it's the kind of thing that would take months to even begin to if it's like, I don't know, nuclear engineering or something like that, you might just need a little more time with it. What kind of profession are you thinking of writing about?
Oh, it's plumbing.
Plumbing. Okay. Wait, you're the one that's doing the fantasy plumber one. That's right.
Yes.
Okay. I think
awesome.
especially for a fantasy show, it's like, I don't know if the plumbers of the world are gonna be too upset if you get a couple details wrong. If it was like a biopic about the creator of the pipe, or who created the pipe, or if it was like something where the plumbers actually would really care, then I would say maybe that would take a little extra time. But especially if you have that extra layer of fantasy to it, people are not really going to care that much about the research. I don't think your show hinges on the mechanics of plumbing, unless it does it?
Perfect. No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, hopefully thank you. Other questions on genre, or about your show's genre, or about how these genres are working, or what to expect from certain genres, or anything at all on this? I will also add there's nothing wrong at all with just picking one. Don't feel like you have to add two just to feel like a fully fledged idea. Picking one is more than acceptable. Pepper says Egyptians created the first pipes. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I picked pipe as my plumbing thing. All right, Jotil says, what are the tropes of noir? Well, we were talking about this a little bit before, but if we want to go more into this, noir is going to be crime stories, so they're going to fit in the crime genre pretty much every single time. So there's going to be crime involved. A lot of the time, the tropes are going to be revolving around detectives solving crimes, or if not formal detectives, then at least amateur detectives. People attempting to unravel the mystery behind crimes, trying to figure out who committed them, trying to figure out why they were committed, trying to bring the perpetrators to justice. And noir is a subset of crime, first and foremost. Second, it's going to involve a lot of those sort of aesthetic tropes, like long, shadowy alleyways and a lot of fog and mist, all of which kind of stems from this, like, it very much is rooted in the German expressionist kind of origins of the early 20th century. Everything from the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari to The Third Man. A lot of these tropes were codified in, the 20s to 30s, after World War I, when the world was feeling like a very dangerous, chaotic, corrupt, and awful place. And especially with, global depressions starting to hit, there was a lot of despair and a lot of mistrust and a lot of feeling of hopelessness that I think that noir stories are really touching on, where it feels like the forces of crime are overwhelming against your protagonist. Maybe corruption spreads all the way to the top, but we just have to keep fighting day after day, even as the system breaks you down and beats you down. That's the sort of feeling of noir. It's like we are only these tiny combatants against the tide of darkness, sort of like cosmic horror in that way, but in this sense, the tides of darkness are corruption, crime, and violence, and bootleggers, and rum runners, and all these things that people in those eras where these things were very popular were dealing with. It's not to say that they have to be period pieces. Neo-noir is still going to be about those things, but it's going to be just in a modern context, and it's going to be playing with the tropes. Often neo-noir is going to attempt to subvert the tropes or to play them in different ways, because noir, like many other genres, such as the murder mystery, for instance, have had their tropes parodied and subverted so many times that it is almost cliched to attempt to parody them, if that makes sense. So hopefully that gives you a sense of just the major themes of noir. In terms of aesthetics, it's going to be about shadow, unknowability, like, fog and mist, betrayal and backstabbing, and really not knowing who you can trust. And we're going to see a lot of character archetypes, like you're on both sides of the law. You're going to have your crime bosses and your kingpins, and you're going to have your stooges and your lackeys. And we just see a lot of these things in gangster and detective fiction, and basically drawing from a lot of that work from the 30s through the 50s. Hopefully that answers some of those questions. Just what are the tropes of noir? Anyone else have questions about any genres? Or their own show and how it fits into a genre? And every show should. I just will add as well. If you're like, my show doesn't fit into any of these genres, then it just seems like you don't know what your show is, or you don't know what a TV show should be, or it just feels like something's off. If your show literally does not fit into any one of these, then I can't even imagine what it would be. So definitely pick one of these, at least. Everybody good on genre?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is it a good idea to have something that just completely betrays expectations, so that it's not like anything that the industry's seen before?
I would say it's generally not a great idea to try to do that. In terms of trying to make something the industry has never seen before, that's exceedingly difficult to do. And it's not always really our goal. The goal isn't so much I guess people's minds aren't blown by default just by reading something that they've never seen before, because usually if it's something they've never seen anything like before, there's a reason why. And it's chances are it just won't really work for them, or it will, as they read through it, they'll kind of dock you points on the basis of, this doesn't feel like you have a solid grounding in either the craft of writing or the kinds of things that get made and get put on TV or something like that. So if you end up writing something that is totally mind-blowing and totally is unlike anything anyone's seen before, That could be cool. It could be great, and you shouldn't hold back necessarily from an idea just because you're like, this is too weird and different, especially for a boot camp when you can kind of do anything. But keep in mind, people are showing up for the ride that you're offering with expectations, because that's what genres are. And so if we are going to do a martial arts show, for instance, and then there's no fighting in it, then the audience is going to be like, why did I watch this? Like, you just betrayed me to some extent. And if you're going to say, like, no, wait until episode 2, then we're going to just really blow your mind, then you've already lost the interested audience. So if you're going to promise something and then not deliver it, you have to be aware that you're doing that and aware that you're going to really lose people unless you offer them something exponentially better than what they were expecting. So generally, it's not to your benefit to try to totally subvert all expectation, especially if this is one of your first couple scripts. If you've been doing this for, 10 years, if you've been writing for 10 years and you're like, okay, now is the time to blow everyone's minds, I would say go for it probably. But for the most part, you want to promise something and then fulfill that promise. Hope that answers that question. All right, we'll move on to our next slides now, unless anyone has any other that they can just let us know in the text chats. We're going to go over... do we need to go over anything else before posting and sharing? Let me double check. I think everyone understands the difference between premise and status quo, I would hope. Let me know if anyone needs more clarification on that.
A quick question. I think you mentioned this already, but even status quo shows where they're like pretty purely episodic or procedural might have... Is it considered a premise pilot if like that character is entering the profession for the first time and it kind of sets the episodicness in motion?
You can do a status quo show where the pilot episode is the main character joins this world. You totally can. We see it all the time.
Awesome.
If you've seen like the IT Crowd or Community or shows like that, or even I don't think The Office starts this. I think The Office, they're already working there. Is there a new person who joins in the pilot of The Office? Ryan. I think Ryan joins in the pilot of The Office. But in any case, yeah, you can totally do this inciting incident sets up the show moving forward in a half hour status quo show, definitely.
Awesome. Would that be considered in these terms that are behind your head right now? Would that be considered a status quo pilot?
Yeah.
Or
Yes,
would that be considered a premise pilot?
No, it'd be status quo.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
If you intend the show to, no continuity, we can watch them in any order. Regardless of what happens in the pilot, it's still going to be status quo, and same other way around. Good question, though. Thank you. Everybody else understand the difference and how you're going to leave some more threads strategically hanging with premise pilot, and with status quo, you're going to focus on delivering a complete beginning, middle, end story, wherein it feels like there's many more of these to come. Okay, great. Let's look at a couple sample log lines, and then we're going to just break these down a little bit, and then pretty soon you're going to post yours. So in your sketchbooks, as you've been working today, I would be just refining this as much as you can and maybe narrowing it down to 2 or 3 if you have a bunch of ideas. We're going to be looking at these, but in the meantime, just be getting ready to copy and paste your log lines into the chat. We have a question. Can we get a screenshot of the premise pilot status quo slide? I'll just post the whole slides to the chat and you can look at the whole thing. One second. Or maybe it'll just load forever. Oh, there it goes. There you go. So if you want to follow along, we are... Oops, I lost my place. We are going towards slide 39, I think is what we were on. And the slide you were asking about is slide 31. All right, so let's look at some log lines and be getting ready to copy and paste yours into the chat. Don't do it quite yet because we might lose track of them. But let's look at some great pro log lines. Before we look at these, just keep some things in mind. One, high stakes. Loglines usually like to have very high stakes, life and death, love and friendship, revenge, things like this that anyone can sort of understand and relate to. It's okay if your main character is a terrible person, for instance. We don't have to like your main character. We don't need to want to hang out with them. And I've been reading a lot of dark fantasy lately. I've been reading First Law by Joe Abercrombie. The main character, or one of the main characters, basically the main character, is a torturer and a terrible person, and the fan base loves him. He's pretty funny and pretty relatable, even though he's like doing the most monstrous things you can possibly think of. So, and TV, especially in the last 10 years, has really thrived on this kind of like anti-hero thing. So like everything from your Tony Soprano to your Breaking Bad to all these things, we want to either root for your character to succeed or root for them to fail. We don't want anything else. Like the worst place to be in is where we just don't care if they succeed or fail. So don't worry about your main character needing to have some really good reason or some like amazingly altruistic reason for what they're doing or something like that. You can have a character whose goal is to do whatever you want, and their methods can be whatever you want. But be thinking of what are the stakes, right? Like we need to understand why they want it at least. And we need to understand, it needs to be something that even if we don't want the exact same thing, like we can understand why somebody would want that. Like if your main character is just an evil villain who just likes to murder people for no reason, that will be hard to build a whole show around that and keep your audience coming back week after week after week. And even in shows that have psychopathic main characters, like how about that show You, for instance? That's just about a stalker, but he's like, I haven't seen it, but I believe the conceit is that he's totally in love with this lady that he's stalking, right? So in his mind, he's in love with her, and he's doing these things for good reasons. And so the stakes for him are love, right? Like, am I going to be with this person that I love for the rest of my life? Even though it is obviously a twisted version of that, right? Or Dexter, for instance. Dexter, we root for that serial killer because he only targets whom he considers to be bad people, at least. Loglines should also imply the size of a story, so it shouldn't feel way too big in your pilot logline, for instance. It shouldn't feel like this pilot logline is describing the first 5 years of the show. And generally, you should be trying to indicate the size of the story with the series logline too. So we looked at the Ozark logline last week, which I'll bring up here. But notice how where did it go? It designates that the show will take place over I thought I had it. Here it is. No. It designates the show is going to take place over the course of 5 years. So that sort of gives us a broader... Here it is. All right, so a fast-talking financial advisor drags his family from Chicago to the Missouri Ozarks, where he must launder $500 million in 5 years to appease a drug boss. So that series logline gives us a sense of, okay, basically how long this show would last. The size of the story is what we're talking about. This is about a 5-season show, and I think this was literally a 5-season show. We have Blackish as a half-hour status quo comedy where a black family man struggles to gain a sense of cultural identity while raising his kids in a predominantly white upper middle class neighborhood. That feels like that could go on for a billion years, and I think it did. That had a lot of seasons and just wrapped up pretty recently. Breaking Bad, a high school chemistry teacher diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer turns to manufacturing and selling meth to secure his family's future. Okay, again, with that one, I would picture about 4 or 5 seasons, which is going to be the average like target length for a premise-based show for the most part. 5 to 6 maybe at the most. Most people aren't going to aim for more than 6. So it should just sort of feel like we understand the size of the story from the series logline. And look how the world and the character are the important things here. If you have some really clear, tangible goalposts for your series logline, like Ozark has, not every premise show has this really clear, tangible logline, or this tangible goal, which in this case is so tangible that we have a direct number, like an exact number that we're looking at, $500 million in 5 years. That's what we mean by tangible goalpost. Struggling to gain a sense of cultural identity is a completely intangible goalpost, and that's okay for a series logline because we're trying to communicate what are the sorts of situations that are going to come up in that show. We don't need to say a family man struggles to gain $500 million worth of culture, or 500, he tries to make 500 friends in 5 years or something like that. We don't need to do that because this is a sitcom that's supposed to go on forever. So that series logline should feel like that. It should feel like the many, many adventures in this world with these characters. Does that make sense? Anyone have any questions about series loglines? Okay, we might as well just post and share then. Go ahead and post those series or pilot log lines, whatever you've got, into the chat. If you have multiple ideas, you can post all of them, and we'll try to help you decide which one to work on. I'll give you guys a minute to do this. Thanks, Pepper. I'll wait till we get a few more. Looks like some folks are typing. Thank you, Lee. Let's get one more posted, and then we will start doing feedback. And while we're doing feedback, you can continue to post and add yours. We'll try to get to everyone. I don't want to run for, an hour after the class ends, so we'll try to keep this within the reasonable time frame, but we'll get to as many as we possibly can. And of course, now, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to let us know before we start to dive into these.
You posted. Do we click on the chat directly, or?
Yeah. So on the left side of the Discord window, you should find a voice channel called Classroom. If you mouse over that, you'll see a small white word bubble that says Open Chat.
Got it. It's not doing anything because I gotta. But you're on live.
Above my name, so you should see just the word Classroom. Mouse over there, you'll see the little word bubble there. Looks like that.
It says you popped out the player to another window.
Oh, you might have minimized it or something. It might be you might have to find it in a different tab.
It'll open the text to the right.
Okay.
Of the video stream.
Okay. All right. I think all right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we have a few more posted there. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Jotol. All right, let's get started so we can try to get to all of these. Let's start with Pepper. This is the sugar mama crime story, right?
Yep, it's still the same one.
All right. Let's take a look. We're going to go to our blank Google document, and we're going to mark these up live. So if you're not watching the stream, I'd recommend doing that by clicking next to my name where it says the word live, and you can follow along as I mark these up on our Google Doc. I'm going to copy and paste this into the chats, or into the document here. Okay, and do you have a name for the show, or just a name for the pilot?
I just added it. This particularly is Sugar, like that's the name of the whole series, and season 1 specifically would be called Queen Pin.
Okay. So, Sugar, got it. And genre?
It's a romantic crime drama.
That's 3 things, so we'll just say crime drama. Alright, so when overhearing a suspicious phone call of her sugar mommy, a young art student wants to uncover the secrets of her sugar mommy before committing to her feelings for them. So this is the one where she finds out her live-in sugar mommy is a crime boss, right?
Yes.
And that happens in the pilot?
No, that specifically is the overarching series logline. The pilot one is specifically the one below. That's what happens in the first episode, or the pilot specifically.
So she doesn't find out that she's a crime boss in the pilot?
No, she finds out around episode 3.
Okay, big mistake. So remember how I said you don't want to be holding things back and holding things in reserve for later episodes. You're only going to get the pilot, and you got to put all the stuff that you envisioned being awesome about this idea in the pilot, or else we're just never going to get to that episode 3. So I think you need to reframe this a little bit and put the hook up front, which is kind of buried in this, when she discovers her live-in sugar mom. I guess we'll say, is it mommy or mama? It's mommy. Okay.
Either one most of the time. It's mommy, though.
Okay. Is a crime boss. What is she? She's then is sort of drawn into the world of crime, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can phrase that how you want. I'll just put that in brackets. She's drawn deeper and deeper into the world of, and maybe you can be a little bit more specific. I don't know. Is it like human trafficking, or is it like the triads?
It's weapons and drug dealing.
Oh, okay. You can maybe be specific then. In that case, she's drawn deeper into the world of gun running or whatever it is. But that's the hook. The hook of your show is she finds out her lover essentially is a crime boss, and now over the course of the show is going to be getting deeper and deeper into that world. Wouldn't you say that's the sort of trajectory of how it would be intended to go over the years?
Basically.
Okay. So I'd reframe along those lines for the series logline. And then for the pilot logline, so we typically should avoid framing the conflict of people needing to decide something. Because deciding something is an internal process that they could do, like, she must decide. Well, that could just be her sitting in a chair thinking, right? So we like to frame this more in terms of the visual action that the character is taking part in, and think more in terms of a tangible goalpost. It's not a tangible goalpost if she just needs to decide something. So I think that she goes to the company's dance with her best friend. A mysterious CEO approaches her with a life-changing deal. So I'm not sure that we need to know about the dance or the best friend in the pilot. I think, or in this logline here. I think we can start this a little later. Otherwise, we end up with two inciting incidents. One, she goes to the party. Two, she's approached by a CEO. We just want to put one inciting incident. So when a mysterious CEO propositions, and you said an art student, with a life-changing deal, I think that in this case, is the deal to become the live-in sugar child?
Yes, sugar baby.
Okay.
But yes.
So I would, but is that pretty early in the episode when that happens, or do you think that would be more like halfway?
Yeah, that happens currently. As far as I've gotten in the script draft, it's about 10 minutes, 15 minutes in where she's approached about the deal.
Okay, and she knows what the deal is. This is like 50 Shades sort of thing, right? Where they lay it all on the table.
Yeah,
okay.
it's very open and laid out.
Okay, then in that case, I think you're going to probably want to frame this more in terms of when she becomes the, or when she accepts the position as, or whatever, when she I don't know if you accept it as a position. Is it a job? I don't exactly know if it's a job, but when she becomes...
It's technically a job. It is technically a job where you don't have to pay taxes.
Oh, nice. Yeah, hard to put that on a 1040 form or whatever. So when she becomes the sugar baby to a mysterious CEO, ... and then your main character needs to do what? So you might need to just sort of do some more thinking as to what her tangible goalpost is going to be for the pilot, or... She is now, I imagine she's struggling to kind of adjust to this life, but what is the conflict of the pilot? Like, what obstacles does she have to overcome? Maybe you think, and it's okay if you don't know the answers right now, but do you have a sense of what that might be?
Well, she definitely needs to overcome the fact, like, she needs to adjust, as you've said, to this quite massive reveal, and also she needs to try and, at least in her mind, get her feelings in check about the CEO.
So those are both, again, internal goals, and we need to be focusing on more external goals. But you can imply the internal goal with the external goals. So, for instance, I'm just going to give you an example. Like, if our show is a kid joins a new school, right? Then we might say, okay, he's trying to adjust to this new school and trying to find his place here. But for the pilot logline, it would be he enters the talent show and is trying to win the talent show. And he's going to use that to try to gain respect. Does that make sense, how you can use an external goal to imply an internal goal?
Okay,
yes.
No, then that would be her becoming the CEO's assistant. And that's what that would probably be. Because that's what she ends up doing.
Okay,
what's her position?
And what's the challenge, or what's the obstacle there?
Becoming an assistant with zero prior experience is difficult.
So, but if she just... But if she just gets the job, is her goal not to get fired then? Is that her actual sort of tangible goalpost?
No, her goal is to actually be able to do the job, because while she has the position, sure, she doesn't understand the position. She needs to learn what her responsibilities are, figure out what the different responsibilities are, and deal with the danger as well. Like, understand the dangers of becoming the Queen Pin's assistant, because that's dangerous as hell.
Oh, wait, so in the pilot she does find out about the crime stuff, or she's at least taking part in it without knowing?
Yes, it's more the taking part in it without knowing, because she becomes specifically because the CEO, they have the company, and she has the mafia.
Right.
So she becomes the assistant of the company, not of the mafia.
Okay.
So
But it's like a front
gun company.
A front
Yes,
company.
it's
Okay.
It's a front.
I see what you mean. Okay. So in that case, it might be something like when she becomes the assistant to her new live-in sugar mama, a ex art student must, and then maybe just find some actual tangible thing. It might, if it's, I mean, being an assistant doesn't always have really tangible goals attached to it. It might in this case, in which case you might say, like, she struggles to help her boss with a big presentation coming up, or to give a speech or something like that. Or her goal might just be don't get fired. If she's just kind of given the job and now she needs to not lose it, then that would be an acceptable sort of tangible goal as well.
Yeah, it's don't get fired.
Okay.
And don't get killed.
Okay.
Because she is aware, however, of the assassination attempts on the CEO.
Oh.
There was one, literally, like, basically the first day that she got there, somebody attempted to murder her boss.
Wow.
With a sniper through the window.
Dang.
That was a pretty harsh, like, call to reality, I suppose. It's the kind of effect, like, to immediately show that this is a completely different setting. You need to be in a different mindset.
Sure. Okay. I think I understand. Does this help, and does this make sense? Do you have any questions about how to revise these moving forward?
No, I think I got it. I think I got all of it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, don't hold the good stuff back. Don't play the cards too close to the chest. We want to know this is about a lady who's being drawn into the world of crime by this dangerous new relationship. That's the hook of the show. Thanks for sharing this.
I hope I sent that personal message to the writer of this. Let me know if I did. To the correct person talking.
Yeah, no, it's in the chat channel. We can all see it. You're in the right spot.
Was that Pepper? Okay.
Yeah, Pepper was the one just speaking on this idea. And Michael says
Pepper,
he's...
you got some stuff going on here. Let's talk.
Thanks, Michael. Let's move on to Lee. Are you there, Lee?
Yes. Hi.
Oh, hi. Shall we go over these? Can you read this out for us?
Yeah, sounds good. So the series title is Ebb and Flow. It's sort of a status quo pilot fantasy procedural and a 30-minute show. The series logline, both of these are totally works in progress, but the series logline is an ambitious young trans woman learns the plumbing trade from a laid-back water god. Together they tackle leaky old faucets and corroded new morals. And then the pilot episode, I'm calling it Backflow. On her first job as a plumber's apprentice, an ambitious young woman discovers that her laid-back master is an ancient water god in disguise and secretly tests his ethics to ensure that she'll be safe in his presence.
Okay, let's take a look. Okay, Ebb and Flow, 30-minute. Is this animated or is this live action?
I was thinking live action.
Okay.
It could be animated, but
yeah,
I think it could work with very basic practical effects.
That's true. Okay, so let's see. Series logline. An ambitious young trans woman learns the plumbing trade from a laid-back water god. Is laid-back one word like that, or is it hyphenated? Together, they tackle leaky old faucets and corroded new morals. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, just because you explained it before, I sort of know what this means. But if I was just reading this for the first time, like, does anyone here know what corroded new morals would refer to? I just wonder if a reader would look at that and be like, huh? You see what I mean?
Even I don't. So.
Oh, even you're not sure yet.
I'm not sure about it.
I'd have an idea.
I know that I made a list of some words that could be applied to both like morals and ethics and also plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to find like the Rubik's Cube way to make that fit in the logline somehow.
Sure. Did someone else have a
but
comment
I don't
just
think
now?
I've got it here.
I did. I
Go
think I have. I would be able to guess from that maybe this is someone who's not been the best person in their life. That's what I'd be getting from it corroding as well, or that they were once really good with their morals and they had really high moral standards, but they're deteriorating. So that could be something that's implying.
Is that what you meant, Lee? Are you referring
No.
to the morals of the plumbers or their clients?
The god dude. Of the water god guy.
Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, my intention with it is definitely to this definitely misses the mark. My intention is that they are excuse me, I have a cold. They're helping the clients, their plumbing clients, kind of loosen up some of the more puritanical morals, get a greater sense of community. It's basically a communist pagan touched by angel is the idea, right? Like,
That's
it's
funny.
never going to get produced. But that's the goal for it. I'm not quite sure how to say that yet in the logline.
Yeah, so I guess just the basic idea of what does it mean for a plumber to tackle someone's morals? I don't know because normally a plumber doesn't address someone's morals. So I just am kind of in just the really simple explanation of this. I like that you've chosen a pithy little pun, and the idea of morals being corroded does make sense just linguistically. I like the words that you're choosing here, but I would just try to describe this in such a way that somebody who you don't have the luxury of being able to explain it all out to will still understand. So I'm not exactly sure what the answer to that is yet. I would also think if you can do one sentence, then I would. An ambitious transformer learns the plumbing trade from a laid-back water god, and they tackle leaky old faucets. Yeah, I may not have an answer for you just yet, but
Cool.
I think that you get I think you're still working on this and still chewing on how exactly to express that. If in doubt, I would just write it out as straightforward as you can, and then try to maybe think of how you could apply a little bit of a pithier voice to it. Just if you need to say, and together they work to fix local plumbing problems and also how would we even explain this? Improve the lives of their clients, something like that.
Yeah,
I think
that sounds good.
You don't have to use exactly that. And if you can find some fun way to phrase it, then go ahead. But they're basically trying to improve their lives, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think I get it. All right, let's look at the pilot. So, on her first job as plumber's apprentice, an ambitious young woman. On her first job, an ambitious young plumber's apprentice, right?
Oh, awesome.
Discovers that her laid-back master is an ancient water god in disguise. Cool. And secretly tests his ethics to ensure she will be safe in his presence. So, by that, you mean she tests his ethics? Like, asks him a bunch of rhetorical questions and stuff? Or what exactly do you mean?
That's a great question. I'm not sure what I mean, and I am still on the fence about what specifically happens in the pilot after she discovers this. Essentially, I'd like to use my thinking is that if they're going to be kind of if the idea for the series is that they're going to be sort of helping people to improve their lives by kind of sussing out their values and tweaking things, whatever, that you can get a microcosm of that in her sort of trying to watch him and see if he is like an Old Testament god or I don't know.
Is there a chance she's in actual danger? Like, is there a chance she won't survive? There is?
Definitely. Or,
really?
Well, I mean, for a trans woman, there's always a chance that she's not gonna survive an interaction, especially with an old white guy. So like that's part of it. But she knows how to navigate regular human world, but she's if you were to discover that like somebody with some amount of power over you also has some sort of magical abilities, that might actually be kind of freaky. So
it's true, it would be freaky. I guess I was just trying to suss out, is she actually in danger or not? Because if so, then you can frame the conflict of the episode as in like she must survive her first job, right? Which is
gotcha.
A blankety blank blank.
She's definitely not in danger.
Oh, she's not in danger.
She's definitely not in danger. No, but she thinks she might be.
Oh, then you can still phrase it like this. If that's what seems to be the case for the pilot, she has to survive her first job, which is, and then you probably want to let us know what their first job is. And cool. it can be silly, or it can be like she has to survive their first job, a clogged shower. Like it might just be as simple as that, or
awesome.
Maybe it's like a CEO's clogged shower, or something that just gives us a little bit more kind of context as to who we're going to be dealing with and having to, like, the kind of obstacles that will be coming up in that episode, something like that.
Excellent.
Any questions on these?
No, I think that's great. I'm going to try to screenshot this real quick before.
Cool. I can post it. I can just copy paste it into the chat if you want.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No worries. There you go. Okay, so let's move on to our next one, and with all of these, I'm going to be giving a bunch of suggestions. You do not have, and when you're taking any notes, it's not me saying you have to do these things, just like when you get notes from an executive or from a producer. It's not always them saying, you have to do these things. So even if you don't think there's any way that something can work, you can always just say, I'll think about that more, or I don't know the answer to that, or something along those lines. Development and notes-taking takes place, everyone's been great so far. This is not to me saying you guys have not been good at receiving these, but this is just like, just blanket advice for everyone. Be prepared to hear a lot of feedback and to be willing to change things and be willing to rethink things, and always feel fine saying, I'm not sure yet. You can always say that. All right. Let me bring up the next one. We have a couple more. Let's do Street Cats.
Hello, my audio good?
Hi, I hear you. Go ahead.
I say the series logline. I had 3 BFFs in elementary school, growing up in the grittiest part of the city, fight, scheme, and have fun in order to survive the systematic oppression in the world they're aging into. And play the pilot logline. I said, after an emotionally exhausted girl's entire summer gets consumed by her codependent mother, she finally gets to meet up with her 2 best friends the day before school starts. In order to put off dealing with her mom for as long as possible, she goes along with their plan and do every adventure they planned on in one night.
All right. Thanks for this. And yeah, we did this last week, so this is the updated version of this logline. What was the title on this again? Street Cats. Okay. Okay. So let's look at these again. So series logline: 3 BFFs in elementary school. We wouldn't say growing, so grow up in the grittiest part of the city. Or actually, we don't even need to say they grow up, probably. We want to frame this all in present active tense as we can. So they fight, scheme, and have fun in order to survive the oppressive world they're aging into. Okay, so 3 BFFs, and you might even be able to say something like in an inner city elementary school, and we could then lose the part where you say they grow up in the grittiest part of the city. 3 BFFs in an inner city elementary school fight, scheme, and have fun in order to survive the oppressive world they're aging into. I guess I can see how having fun would in some sense be acting towards their survival in a way. I think that mostly works.
Yeah, if you want to like
go ahead.
sort of have like some line that does sort of add like sort of the comedic, or like have its own a light tone, like contrast with sort of the other dark elements in the log line.
Right, I see. So in that case, yeah, maybe you want to say something like they have crazy schemes or misadventures. I think you said the word scheme. Crazy. You want to just imply sort of over the top situations. If that is going to be sort of the tone of the show, you might just need to play with the words a little bit. But I think you're mostly there. Let's look at the pilot logline. After an emotionally exhausted girl's entire summer gets consumed by her codependent mother, she finally gets to meet up with her two best friends the day before school starts. In order to put off dealing with her mom for as long as possible, she goes along with their plan to do every adventure they planned in one night. Okay, so
I think like the pilot. Yeah, I was gonna say I think the pilot logline I think is probably too wordy and see like I want to see like where it can possibly can be trimmed down.
Mm-hmm. So let me just make sure I understand. So you say her summer gets consumed by her codependent mother. So basically, she just like didn't get to do anything she wanted to do over the summer. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. She meets up with her two best friends the day before school starts. In order to put off dealing with her mom for as long as possible, she goes along with their plan to do every adventure they planned in one night. How would that put off dealing with your mom?
I guess like in the like context of the show, I guess the idea is that like I guess it's already like unrealistic that they'll be able to like do every adventure in one night, but like no matter what, like she wants to kind of like keep it going just because like she sure wants to procrastinate going home since like she's basically trapped inside her home all summer. It's like the one opportunity where she can just like hang out with her friends, and she wants to like keep that going as long as possible, even though that is also like kind of an unrealistic and unachievable goal.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, so we're going to want to probably frame this a little bit more like, how would we frame this? So let's just try back to basics. So when inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before / or else stakes. So what is the inciting incident here? It seems like the inciting incident is... what is it? What's the event that kicks off this story, would you say? Is it her... is it like when she I'm not making any sense, am I? I'm trying to just figure out how this story gets started. So you're saying it's kind of like she realizes they only have one day to do everything they want, right? Is that kind of the event that kicks this off? I don't really know how much of an event that is, but
I guess like
is that right?
Everything in the first paragraph would probably be like the exposition. So it seemed like the inciting incident would be like the moment when like maybe she's finally able to get away from her house for like 1 minute, and she like sees her friends like on the street, and that's like she meets up with them.
Yeah, maybe you'll want to put it a little bit more like this. So this isn't exactly even a very clear inciting incident, but it sort of implies that the inciting incident is your main character suddenly has a day free before school starts. So you'll probably want to phrase it something like, with just a day before the school year starts, your main character, which is, how did you phrase who she is? An exhausted girl, I guess. An exhausted girl urges her best friends into a night of all the adventures she intended for the summer. Something like that, where and I would not phrase it in terms of she goes along with their plan. You probably want your main character to be more active in the story. So if your main character is not the one who comes up with this plan and who is pushing the other characters into this, then you might be focusing on the wrong person. So I would look at it a little bit more like this. And then we understand that I guess the inciting incident might even be that she urges them into this kind of all-in-one night adventure, and then the conflict is going to be they need to keep out of trouble, avoid getting busted for staying out too late, and all these things like that. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I would think along these lines, and I'll copy and paste this into the chat for you if that's helpful. Does this seem like it might be a good way to cut this down? Does this seem like it still is expressing the show that you're intending to write?
I guess it makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
I need to add, I guess, no, I guess that's good, yeah.
Okay, feel free to adjust it. This is not like the final version of it, but just try to get it down to one sentence that's more or less, delivering the same information. And then, yeah, and I think the series logline makes total sense, and we get these are going to be 3 kids living in not great part of the city, as they basically just have episodic adventures week after week. We don't need to put way too much more work into the series logline. I think you're pretty much there. The pilot logline, though, just cut it down, frame it more in terms of when inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before or else stakes, and I think you'll be in a good spot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay, we have do we have more? I think we have 1 or 2 more. Let me see, what's our next one? Let's do Hikikomori by Jotol. Are you there, Jotol?
Yeah. What was the question, sir?
Oh, we're just getting to your logline. Do you mind reading it out for us?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember what I wrote. Okay. Hikikomori, John, Noir. The series logline was after his mother is mysteriously kidnapped, a socially reclusive son must infiltrate the local mob to find it before she's killed. Rent after his mother doesn't return home, a socially reclusive son must leave home and follow the clues of her whereabouts. A little.
Sorry, I'm missing like half of your words, more or less. I'm hearing most of it. I lost you right after you read the pilot logline. It's just a bit. Maybe it's a reception issue. Maybe it's a mic issue. Not sure. Let me read this back though. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah. I just wrote it, so if it's a little all over the place, just let me know.
That's okay.
I don't really have any of the details in mind of what this would actually be about. I just didn't know.
You're good. So, after his mother's mysteriously kidnapped, a socially reclusive son must infiltrate the local mob to find her before she's killed. I think that actually works quite well as a series logline. And when you say the local mob, you mean the Yakuza, right? This is set in Japan? Oh, no idea?
Yeah.
Okay, well, with a title like
we'll go with that.
Hikikomori, it just does sound like a Japanese story. So in that case, you can be a little bit more specific. And I mean, if it was a local Yakuza, what is it? Chapter, branch, whatever it is they have. Then you can always, like, being more specific will almost always be helpful. But besides that, I think the series logline works quite well. Let's look at the pilot. So, unable to pay the rent after his mother doesn't return home, a socially reclusive son must leave home and follow the clues of her whereabouts. So, should just be more specific with this, and you may just not know the answer because you just came up with this. And like, we know that he's going to be following the clues of her whereabouts, but that's when you're going to want to tell us what those first few clues are, right? So must like infiltrate the local strip club, right? A local, I don't know, gentleman's club, or befriend, he must a local smuggler, whatever it is. Just find a more specific, tangible goalpost for us, because we understand that they're going to be following clues. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's a good point. I forgot, it's probably a good opportunity to set up like a central relationship.
Yeah, if you can. If there is a really good one for us to use. Your comps for this might be Tokyo Vice, assuming this is set in Japan. That's on HBO. And, yeah, find just some specific thing for him to be doing in the pilot. We want to understand this is the first chapter of this story, so you need to tell us what he's actually up to, who he's up against, or what he's up against in that very first piece. Any questions on this?
Oh, good. Cheers, man.
Thank you. Okay, do we have more? Let's see.
There's one from Michael.
Yeah, let's do Michael. Where's the logline? There it is. All right. Can you read this out for us, Michael? Michael, are you there? You might need to unmute your microphone.
Sorry, my bad.
You're good.
Okay. All right. Format 60-minute evening drama. My writing teacher says I'm writing a soap opera.
Okay.
Series Logline. Chicago public school students survive the system, each other, and their families. Pilot Logline. 3 bullies, senior age, pick on the wrong juniors and are hospitalized by their victims. Teacher is falsely accused by Board of Education employees.
All right. Thanks for that. Do you have a title for this, or still thinking about that?
No, it's called Chicago Ed. Hopefully to get in the Dick Wolf universe with Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Chicago Med.
Oh, okay.
Chicago Ed.
So
you see what I did there?
I see. Okay.
I'm so evil.
Sure. So this is a drama centered around the school system. I got it. So Chicago public school students, I would just say must survive the system, each other, and their families. Okay, I basically see what you mean. I'm guessing. Are you referring specifically to inner city schools, or are these like public? These are like, you say public schools, but these are probably not like
it's Chicago. It is
right.
Chicago. It's the city of Chicago.
Okay. But yeah, so these are not exactly fancy schools, I'm guessing, and have a lot of problems with.
Chicago public. Well, that's the thing. This is gonna go all over the city. So some of these schools are in very richy neighborhoods, very middle class and upper wealthy neighborhoods. Some of them are in the worst slums you can imagine.
Okay. Is there a central school for your show, though?
Yes, it's Robert Smalls High School.
Okay, so I would describe it in terms of the sort of main focus of the show, and I think we just need to focus in a little closer on like who exactly are the main characters in this. So we say bullies are hospitalized by their victims. A teacher is falsely accused by Board of Education employees. So falsely accused of what?
Of doing something to a 4-year-old preschooler.
Oh, so molesting a student? Okay, so this sounds like two separate. Is this two separate storylines, or is this the same storyline?
Yeah, there's an A story and a B story.
Oh, it's the A and B. Okay. So you probably only have room for the A story in the log line. You can definitely have a B story in the pilot episode, but in terms of the log line, I think we just need a little bit clearer focus on like who is this about. So who are the main characters in the show?
Okay, so we're talking about the pilot or the series?
Well, the pilot is all we're really gonna have to work with, so just the pilot for now.
Yeah, okay. A boy named Anthony.
Okay. So Anthony, we can describe him probably in terms of an adjective noun, just because no one's going to really remember the names. So you'd probably say something like, a reclusive sophomore, or like a popular senior, something that just describes them in terms that we'll get immediately who you mean here. So an adjective protagonist. And let's go ahead.
He's a popular junior.
Okay.
Who really doesn't want to be popular.
Oh, all right. That's interesting. Okay, so popular junior. So in this case, let's find our inciting incident. So is the bully story the main A story, or is the teacher story the main A story?
The bullies.
The bullies. Okay. So when bullies...
They pick on 2 gay students. They're openly gay. They're juniors. And they're openly gay. And everybody loves them. And these 3 guys decide, let's go have some fun with them and mess with them for a little while. And then they get their heads handed to them. They go to the hospital.
Okay. And so now that has happened, what does your main character have to do? What's your main character's goal?
Oh, well, this is his first street fight, so it's really an examination of what it says. They survived, how he's figuring out, well, he's never had a street fight before, and now he just put a kid in the hospital.
Oh, your main character is one of the kids in the group that is beaten up, or that is attacked and fights back?
No. He's one of the victims. He's the intended. Okay.
Right.
2
I think
gay
I see.
juniors go to the washroom, and 3 bullies go in there and decide to mess with him. And then after the bullies end up in the hospital.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying the main character is the one that's hospitalizing the bullies. Is that right?
No. The main character is one of the victims, the intended victim.
Oh, But who beats them up if not him?
No, okay. There's two juniors.
Okay.
They're lovers.
Okay.
Okay. The three bullies come into the bathroom just to mess with them for a while.
Mm-hmm. And who is your main character of those people that were just mentioned? He's one of the two.
The victim.
He's
the victim named Anthony.
So he's one of the two kids that are targeted by the bullies.
Right.
Right. Okay. And then they fight back and they hospitalize the bullies. Is that right?
There you go.
Okay. So the main character does hospitalize the bullies.
Yes.
Okay.
He hospitalized.
Okay. So that sounds like that's in the first couple scenes. Do you think?
So yeah, it happens in the opening, but the audience doesn't see the fight until about the second act.
That's okay. It's still, even if we don't see it, it's still the inciting incident. So when he
that's the inciting incident.
Okay, so when he fights back against, when he hospitalizes the school's worst bullies in a fight.
Oh, they're not the word bullies. They're a bunch of little punks. They don't even merit.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You don't have to phrase it just like this. I'm just trying to think of an example of how you'd probably phrase this. So when he hospitalizes a group of bullies in a fight, your main character, now his goal is what? What does he now need to do?
He wants to just go back to school.
And he can't because what's in the way of doing that?
He has to go back to school.
So what's the obstacle?
The whole school wants to make him a hero, and he
Oh.
don't want all that.
Okay, you didn't mention that. So when a fight with some bullies ends up elevating him to the status of a school hero, our main character needs to now what? What's his goal? Just try to get back to normal?
Yeah, okay, hey, you know what? I'm starting to like your class now.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah, he don't want to be a badass. This is his first street fight. He didn't even know he didn't even know he was able to do this.
Okay. So when he defeats a group of bullies in a fight, I forget how you described him, but a something junior. Finds himself inadvertently, something like that. He finds himself
inadvertently elevated to
hero status, and then you describe, and now he needs to try to get back to normal before what?
There you go. That's what he wants.
Okay.
This is the premise of the whole series. Because every week, he just wants to go to school and become a big shot TV producer, director, like I want to, and then something else comes in his way.
Right. Okay. So, why is it a problem that he's popular now?
Oh, he's a TV producer at a young age.
So, wouldn't you want to be popular?
No.
So, is it he doesn't like the attention, or is it making him the target of more bullies now that he has this reputation?
Nah.
No. Then what?
He's already a TV producer.
A high school student is a TV producer? What?
Yeah. You ever heard of cable access TV?
Oh, sure, like local stuff. Yeah, I guess yeah, you're right. Okay, I see what you mean.
You only have to be, in Chicago, you only have to be 13 years old to be a producer.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I'm sure there's some fun stuff there to explore.
And became a producer. I know, those are the little secrets I'm going to reveal if you peel back the layers of the onion. So, he took that class, actually found out he's a good director, okay? He put on a couple shows and brought in a bunch of kids and singing groups and, these garage bands, and people really like him.
But, so I'm just trying to figure out what are the stakes here, right? So he's become the school hero.
Right.
He doesn't like that he's the school hero. Why doesn't he like that?
That's just not, okay, now, as you're going to find out, this is a series. Okay, first of all, he's adopted. And he's just not one of those kind of kids that seeks out popularity. There are high schoolers that just want to go to high school.
Oh, so is it because he's shy? Is it because he's now being targeted by other bullies? Like, he's not shy? Then I think we just need to... I'm just struggling to see the conflict then. It seems like the conflict is over by the time he defeats the bully. How is there more conflict in that storyline?
Week after week, more shit comes on him. Like, Okay, next a couple of weeks, here comes some runaway kid banging on his door. Help me, help me, help me. And then another week, yeah.
Oh,
Got you thinking.
so
That's
so
what I want. I want the audience to think like
This-
you're thinking right now.
But this is not for the audience. This is for somebody who might read the script, and in order to get them to read the script, they have to understand. So,
Okay.
like in this case, are you saying now that he's the hero, people are approaching him to solve other problems in the school, and he doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, and they want him to join the gay, straight alliance and all this other stuff.
Oh,
And
okay.
He's the pilot, and he don't want all that.
Okay. So yeah, that's. I think I'm starting to see the show after all these questions. I think that.
He kind of like Hamlet. You know, he's that unintended. He don't want all this stuff. He just wants to go to school. That's all.
Okay. So he struggles to get his life back to normal, but then we need to express the sort of stakes, right? So
Okay.
we would say it's something like before, he gets overwhelmed by all these new responsibilities, or his popularity becomes a problem. Normally we
Right.
would think.
Actually,
Go ahead.
yeah, actually, he already had these problems. Well, he's raised in this community where he's kind of in this leadership club type thing. So he has mentors under him, little elementary kids.
Hmm.
Anthony, did you really almost break his neck? And the bullies, he's known these bullies all his life.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I think that I would phrase the pilot logline something like this. When he defeats a bully, or when he defeats the bullies in a fight, an adjective junior finds himself elevated to hero status and struggles to get his life back to normal in order to, or before, and then just explain why it's important. Like, why does he need to get his life back to normal? Most people wouldn't want to get their life back to normal if they were suddenly a hero and suddenly popular. So you need to convince us that your main character wants that. And whether it's like the idea that people are trying to get him to do stuff for them now would be a good source of conflict, or maybe he's being sought out and targeted by the bullies want revenge now that he's popular, or something like that. Just use that last clause, this last half, sentence, to just clarify why he wants that.
It's kind of like Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, I never saw that one, actually. That's the plot line of the plot of Jesus Christ Superstar is kind of like this, really.
You know what? It just dawned on me after listening to you. It's kind of like that. It's like, I did not ask for all this. Or Life of Brian. Monty Python's Life of Brian. Like,
oh, I've seen that one, sure.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, he's already well liked, especially by young people.
Okay. So I hope this gives you enough to work with for now, just in terms of revising this logline. Did you have any questions on this?
On this, well, actually, you know what? I got a lot of clarity. For example, just from this, like you were talking about a crisis of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's facing. A crisis of the week. And
I
then this TV show does drop the viewer into the middle of these people's lives. And watch this. He's not necessarily, now here's where I need some help. He's not necessarily the lead actor or the lead character week to week to week that kind of floats around. Like this week, here comes another kid who's the focus of attention. And then this week, I'm a school teacher, and that's what we do day to day.
Sure.
We deal with crisis of the week. Okay, so who's having a crisis today? All right, let's deal with it. And that's the premise of this show. And if it helps you, main antagonists of this show are the parents.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. See, what happens is, and I'm gonna give you a little insight. Those bullies are just as much a victim.
Right, because the parents influence them to be that way.
Exactly. You nailed it. Knocked it out the ballpark.
I see.
That's what happens from week to week. Every week, you see some kids doing some really effed up stuff. And then the camera takes you into their homes, and you see, oh, no wonder you're a little screwed up little kid. Look at your parents.
Sure. I get it.
It never gets discussed in discussions about public education. Everything is teachers don't know how to teach. Teachers are lousy. Teachers suck. The system sucks. failing schools. I've been a teacher all my career. I'm 43 years, and that's all we hear. So the reality is that it's not the teachers. You can go to the worst ghetto, and the teachers are actually stronger than the best private school teachers. Because crap they got to deal with way beyond. Who are the real villains in public education? Mom and dad.
Parents. Got it.
That's what this show does week from week, and that's how it is procedural. Because every week you see some kid doing some really screwed up stuff, and then why did they kid do that? And the camera takes the viewer into the homes, and they see, oh, no wonder. If I was being raised by these parents, I'd be pretty screwed up too.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think I totally get it. I think that even though you're going to have a big ensemble, still frame the pilot logline around this main A story. So we just somebody who's reading this will just get a sense of who we're going to be following and what they're going to be trying to accomplish and what's standing in their way. So definitely do try to focus in as much as possible. I copied and pasted this working version of it into the chat, so you can copy it from there if you want to. Or
Anthony does follow the show every week. He's in there.
Oh, great. Okay.
The cop who's in there every week.
Okay, so yeah, just focus on Anthony then for the pilot logline, and when you're like pitching and explaining the show, start there. We can't just like try to bring the focus in and help us invest in a character and understand this is his story. This is this guy's story. Okay.
Yeah. Every week.
Got it. All right. Thanks for this.
Help me see, make me walk, make me hear, make me be like, God damn, what the hell? Can't y'all go home and get the problem solved?
I get it. Yeah, it's a good character archetype, the kind that everyone wants him to solve their problems. We see that in like westerns all the time. The western is like the sheriff that needs to solve everyone's problem week after week. Okay.
There you go.
So good. It's a good premise for a show. Right. He doesn't want to be sheriff.
Okay.
I get it. So yeah, revise that logline along those lines, and you can copy and paste from the chat if you need to, and you should be in good shape for next time. Thanks, Michael. All right, so that's the end of our class for today. If you go to the chat, you will see a poll has been posted, so you can you can click that number 1 if you intend to sign up for the bootcamp, but you haven't yet. That will just give you access to our exclusive chat channels. We have a couple things coming up. We have Writing Your First Page Sunday at 11. That's another free, open to the public class for everybody. And we have that Christmas Pitch Fest coming up on the 21st at 6 o'clock. So bring your pitches for feature ideas. And you're going to take us about halfway through the story and then suggest the rest of the movie. You should watch our previous YouTube videos on pitching classes, especially the ones with Scott Barkan, if you want to do those, and if you want to have the best chance of winning all of our great prizes. Michael asks, in this class, do we provide week-by-week analysis of the scripts? No. So there's way too many students for me to be able to give feedback on the scripts in progress in these class sizes. But we do have a bunch of channels specifically just for sharing and getting feedback and swapping scripts. And you can do all that within the community, not even in the classes, just like between the classes, basically. And then at the end, once it's all done, you can either trade the script with someone and you give them your opinion and they give you their opinion, and then you'll just exchange notes like that. You can also buy notes on my website if you want, scriptcamp.net/coverage, if you want to just purchase an evaluation and written feedback and a call that goes through and explains the major points of it. But generally, reviewing the pages week by week is not something we do anymore. We used to, but it ended up not being viable once the class gets too big. Okay, so we also have Writer's Lab on Saturdays, as Nacho mentions here, which is 2 hour. It's like office hours that you can come by every Saturday from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock Pacific time, and you can get one-on-one help up to like 15-20 minutes, and that can include reviewing pages if you want. Just literally whatever you're working on. If you come by on Saturday for the lab, then we can help you with that. Okay, that's going to be all for today. Go ahead.
What's the name of that one again? What was the name of that one? That 15-minute one-on-one that's called what?
That's called the Writer's Lab. That's on Saturday.
The Writer's Lab, yeah.
The writer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's included with membership. So if you want to be attending lab, then make sure to sign up at scriptcamp.net for membership. Let me bring up our our slide of everything coming up. Do we have one? At the beginning. Here it is. And let me just take questions. Thank you all so much for coming to this. I hope this has been helpful for you guys to continue to refine these ideas. I want to just open the floor and see if there's any last questions on anything we've talked about today before we close and we wish you a good night. So the floor is open. Any last questions for today?
I actually have one. Just because I'm slightly going back in to that pilot log line that we worked on, was is there like a good word estimate, like how many words or something should be in this sentence? Because I have this really lovely habit of writing run-on sentences, and I don't know if this is one.
Good question. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule on that. I would think maybe like 20 to 35 words might be sort of the sweet spot. I think maybe aim for like 15 to 20, I guess. But I'm just sort of making that up. I actually don't have a great idea. Maybe look at some of the revised log lines that we had from today that we've been copy and pasting into the chat, and just do a quick word count on those. I know they're not final or perfect, but like one sentence, like 3 clauses or so. Like try not to be adding clause after clause after clause. I don't have a great word count answer for you though. I should find that out. I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah, because I got like 39 or something. It's too many.
Yeah, maybe go for like 25. See if you can cut 10 words. Tamara has a question. I had to work. Can I submit my logline Sunday? And is 11 o'clock time for class Pacific time? Yes, all times, anytime you see a class on here, those are always going to be in Pacific time. So on Sunday, the class is on writing the first page of your script, so we won't be reviewing log lines. But if you want to come on for lab tomorrow, we could review a log line, or you could just post in our log lines channel. We may not get to it directly tomorrow, but sometime this week, if you post in the log line channel, we can give you feedback on it. Any other questions? All right, if there's no more questions, we're going to wrap up for today. Thank you all so much for coming. Remember, you can come by Sunday at 11 for another free promotional class. And you should come by if you are interested in continuing to write a TV pilot. This first class is going to be January 6th from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So you'll have plenty of time over the holidays to continue to refine this script idea that you're working on now. And if you share it in our logline channels or any of our feedback channels, then we can continue to work with you on it up until that first, or the class of week 2. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys back for another Script Camp event or class soon. Hope you all have a great rest of your week.